Today we're going to talk about some of the points to ponder or things to keep in mind when studying Karate-Do. If you are ever around or fortunate enough to have alone time with Nagamine Sensei, sometimes he would ask the most off-the-wall questions, most random questions. I remember a whole afternoon we spent discussing bed bugs and having to Google them. We had different conversations about business. He spoke about different things that happened in the world. But one of the things from these conversations that he always stressed was that we should not judge others. We're not supposed to judge, compare, think that we're better than, or put others down. This is really easy to do. And the one thing that you have to keep in mind when you do this is to make sure that you look inward first. We don't know what the person's going through. We don't know if they have a disease, an ailment, if they're sad or depressed. They should have the same respect as everyone. If you study the book, it talks about to have respect for your family, friends, and even foes. The one thing that I've learned with time in the martial arts is that the longer that you're around, the more humble or inward you start to become. I don't post a lot of videos about myself doing karate or showing kata anymore. Number two, I hear a lot of things about in the early days we didn't perform kata like this, or we didn't do that in our karate system. And I think back to the early days, and I honestly did not know very much, and I still don't as an instructor. I made a lot of mistakes. You know, I would practice a lot of basics, higher repetitions. Sometimes that was because I didn't have a lot to teach. I think one of the phrases that I try to live by as an instructor is this: there is no end to learning. If you remember that, or Shoshin, a beginner's mind, then you realize how much there is out there for you to study, how much there is for you to further your knowledge. And so always keep that in mind, but also remember that you can learn from everyone. I hear a lot of times people say, oh, I don't teach kids anymore, or I only teach brown belts or advanced rank. That's easy. Teaching advanced rank is the simplest thing that you can do, because the main instructor or their sensei has already got them so far. So it's not that difficult for you to teach them, or to run a class, or to run a seminar, or to run a clinic. And that's why I really don't teach at other people's schools, or I really don't teach at do many seminars. I get a lot of requests for them. I just choose not to, because I have to focus on our dojo, my training, and I want to work with those that really need it. And in today's world, I think a lot of our beginners and a lot of our kids in the Matsubashi field are falling through the cracks. So I really stress to work with the white belts, work with the yellow belts. You're going to learn just as much or more working with them as a teacher and how to explain things and how their body moves than you will with a 5th or 6th degree black belt. If you don't, then your mind is closed. If we think about kids in the martial arts today, they are our future. So if we discredit them, then our future dies. I hear a lot of people say, well, a kid shouldn't have a black belt. But if you remember this, that in Okinawa, the kids do wear junior black belts. And if you realize that a junior black belt and an adult black belt are two different levels, then you have a comprehension of what really happens. It's very hard when you start a child at 4, 5, 6 years old and they they train for 10 years or 8 years to say, hey, you'll be able to test when you're 16. That just doesn't make any sense, because people need advancement, they need encouragement, and they need to keep moving forward. So if you realize that an adult white belt is higher than a junior black belt, things stay in check. That's how we've always done it at our school, and that's how they do it overseas. So it's not really saying that they're a true black belt, because a junior black belt still has to retest at the age of 16, used to be 18, but 16 years old. With that said, most of the junior black belts that we have, you would not be able to tell a difference between their karate techniques and an adult testing for black belt. One of the points that I hear a lot of is, do you really need to go to Okinawa to study karate, or do you need to learn from a person from Okinawa? And I was very fortunate. I started when I was a teenager with Sensei Nishime, and at the time I had just graduated high school, 17 years old. I was working some part-time jobs. I had been involved with the martial arts and interested in the martial arts since really Kwai Chang Caine at the age of 4. But I didn't have any structure. And so when I found Sensei Nishime, he filled that void. He gave me amazing start in the martial arts. And one of the things that I remember is, we would show up, or I would show up early to the dojo. He would be getting off of work at Cincinnati Millicron, and we'd walk in, helping teach some classes, and then take 1 or 2 adult classes, and then work out for an hour or 2 afterwards when everyone left. And that went on for a few years. We had class 6 days a week then. It was a great experience. I think it really helped me in life. But with time, directions and ideas and things changed, and so my interest really was not in the sport karate world. It was more in the traditional world. So I went to seek out what I had known, and so I wanted to get back under Nagamine Sensei, and so I sought that out and was able to accomplish that. And so I didn't have as much time with him as a lot of people, and I really feel like it's not where you start, it's where you end. You can start off strong, be a great student, be a great person, do this, do that, but how you end, how you finish is really what you're looking for. How is the journey? I never once disrespected Nagamine Sensei, not once. If anything, I think that we really made him feel good, especially in the last decade of his life. He was very, very happy. He was happy to see a lot of progress. He was happy with all of the people around the world connecting. And I think this is truly important. But I hear people say all of the time, do you really need to go to Okinawa? I would just say this. You'll see it in 2 places. If you know the Matsubashi Ryu philosophies, if you look at the 4th one, and if you also look at the recommendations for study, it talks about study karate on the basis of its history and traditions. you're not going to get any more history or tradition or cultural experience than actually going to Okinawa to see the beauty of the people, to sit down with them and have a meal, to interact with them in the market, to see things with your own eyes, and to train in the buildings and the places that you read about in many books. So I would say yes, you should go to Okinawa if all possible. I've been fortunate enough to go to Okinawa many times to meet people not just in Matsubayashi but in other martial arts styles, and to make some really good friends that, you know, have nothing to do with karate but are just good people. Certain store owners, tea shop owners rather, and a lot of people like that we've built friendships with over the years. And it never ceases to amaze me how caring each person over there is, how different life is. One of our students we just highlighted on a video recently, Zach Parr, he has been living in Okinawa. He has a really great chance to learn the whole culture and the history, and what better place to learn the martial arts than in Okinawa. I encourage my students to go to seminars, to venture outside of the dojo. I think that's great to keep your mind open. You know, Mr. Wands, he's one of our oldest students, physically and long-term students. He's gonna like that I said that. But he goes to many seminars, a lot of Shotokan seminars. He trains with various people, and you know, that's more his thing. If that's what you want to do, you know, I encourage it wholeheartedly. I think lastly with that statement about training in Okinawa or with Okinawans in general, or just immersing yourself in the culture, I think the higher that you go and the more devoted you become as a martial artist, it's kind of like one of the neatest things that you can do is just kind of go to the birthplace of karate, train over there in one of the dojos, and just learn how things happen. It is a different feel. It's hard to explain or describe, but I really think there's a benefit to it. Sometimes I get messages or comments, calls, and says, hey, I just would like to check on you. Wanted to see how things are going. You know, I missed class. And I say, well, come on back. You know, you're always welcome. And the person will say, oh, I don't want to embarrass you, or I don't want to make you feel bad, or, you know, I've forgotten everything. And I want you to remember this, that you are training for you. You're not training for me. We're trying to make you a better person. If we can do that, then we've accomplished what we've set out to do. You have to really learn to be humble, and we keep saying that, but Soke said one of the ultimate aims of your study should be to live in harmony, or to create harmony. And I really believe that. I am still a baby in the martial arts. I don't know very much. I've never claimed to know very much. For some reason, I was promoted. I just showed up, I worked hard. Never once did I ask for a promotion. Never once did I want to get promoted. I actually was hesitant on the last 3 times that I was asked to go in front of a promotion board for the last 3 ranks. And I just don't really see a big appeal to the whole certificate thing. I just did what my teacher asked of me. And when he said, hey, I want you to take a test, I would take a test. With that said, I'm too young for the rank. I know that. In 2010, I believe I was too young. I know I didn't have enough time, but for some reason, that whole year, Nagamine Sensei kept contacting me. He wanted me to test. He wanted to promote me. So I am just trying to honor his wishes. With that said, it puts more pressure on myself. It makes me work even harder. So sometimes I would show up before class and do 30 or 40 kata. Now I feel like I have to do even more just to get ready to be prepared for what he saw in me. And I never wanted to let him down on that aspect. So I just don't like a lot of the comparisons with rank and this and that, because in today's world, it doesn't really mean that much. You go everywhere and you see like this guy's a master and this guy's a grandmaster. And, you know, I've never considered myself to be anything like that. I actually got in trouble on one of the trips to Okinawa, second or third trip over in recent years, because when I had a 6th degree with the Renshi title, I had never gotten a new belt. I just wore the old ratty bathrobe. Some of you know what I'm talking about. It's a black belt that basically turned white. I didn't care about the bars or the stripes on the belt, and so I finally got one a few years after that. I think I was maybe 5 or 6 years into that rank when I actually got the Renshi belt, but I just didn't really care for the stripe on the belt. It wasn't appealing to me. So let's work on more training and not worry so much about the ranks and the belts and the certificates. You know, it's paper. It's not going to save your life. You know, work speak. I hope everybody's doing well. We're continuing the points to ponder, or just thoughts about karate. There are about 20 of these different thoughts, but basically we have different areas of study. I think to be complete in the Matsubashi Ryu style, you have to know all of the different points or variations. We have basics, those are broken down. We have fighting techniques, different ways to strike, those are broken down. We have footwork, which are found in multiple footwork drills and routines. We have kata. We have self-defense techniques. We have Makiwara, which the dojo we practice like clockwork. Makiwara is so important that you study. But we also have other areas that you have to practice. You do have to practice partner drills. You have to practice Yakusoko Kumite, which is the promise kumite, or you have to practice, you know, sparring drills. You have to do free sparring. You have to practice bunkai, oyo bunkai, and other avenues like that. And as a side note, guys, just realize this, that you have to learn these traditional routines. A lot of times, you know, it doesn't mean much. The bunkai seems to change over the years. We know that. It's kind of comical anymore. But basically, it is part of our style, it's part of the heritage, and it's something that Nagamine Sensei wanted you to know. Early days, he used to say it was seminar fillers. Later on, he talked about how his views had changed and how important that had become to him. But when you look at this, you know, it's bunkai, oyo bunkai, and sparring are not real world fighting. That's not how you protect yourself. So if you're going around thinking like, I have to study bunkai because I'm going to learn to defend myself, that's not going to get it. It's the same as kata. Kata is not going to protect you. So you have to still study free sparring, and that's going to teach you mostly stamina. It's going to teach you a lot of control and distance, how to move in, how to move out, how to shift the body. Those things are important, but that's still not real fighting. That's not real world fighting. And I hope you never get in those situations. It's not pretty, it's not fun, but I can tell you that our style is very effective if you're ever confronted in those arenas. Other areas of study that you have to have are weapons. And so the weapon, Kobudo, it means extension of oneself or extension of your body. And what that teaches you is how to control things. But each weapon teaches you a different set of principles behind it. Some of the weapons teach you how to manipulate your fingers or strengthening for the punch. Others teach you how to shift the body or turn the body. So weapon study is huge, and if you're not doing it, then it's a shame, because you're missing out on a key factor of what we're trying to create. If you look at the Matsubashi patch, the Sai are on there. There's a reason for that. And O-sensei talked about a later book to follow that talked mostly about Kobudo. Unfortunately, we didn't get that. But that's one of the things that we have to kind of explore for ourselves. Other areas of study are different locks and things that fall into self-defense, sweeps, throws. All of that's found in the style. It's pretty simple to see, but you have to learn the healing aspect. You have to learn the history aspect, and you have to learn the cultural experience or cultural aspect. If you can do these things, then you're starting to complete the style. If you're missing some of them, you're missing huge elements.